Good afternoon, everyone. Are you ready for a trip to the Sierras? Yes, yes. We have all not gotten out as much as we have wanted to, and now it is time. My name is Sherilyn Parsons. I'm the founder and director of the festival, and I'm here to... Thank you. And I am here to introduce someone who really needs applause, which is Kim Stanley Robinson. I'm not going to belabor the number of books he's written, which is extraordinary. One thing to highlight is his most recent book, which is A Ministry for the Future, that many of you know, just a phenomenal book, bestseller. Obama said this is the one book, that everyone should read. So after that comes this fantastic, exciting, beautiful book, The High Sierra, A Love Story. And Stan is going to come and give us a slideshow. During this time, keep your mask on. You can take it off when you go into the Sierras, but for now, keep it on. And, cell phones, no reception in the Sierras, so don't keep it on now. And what else? Exits. Sign books afterwards. This book is actually officially not even out yet. You won't find it in bookstores, but it is here. So Green Apple Books, beloved Green Apple, has them, and Stan will be signing after the event. So support the bookstore and Stan and the festival by getting your book here. And I would like to bring on Kim Stanley Robinson. Enjoy your trip to the Sierras.
Thank you, Sherilyn, for that kind introduction. And yes, I'm here to discuss this book from Little Brown. A project's been in my mind for a whole long time, and it finally happened. A little story about the cover of the book. Little Brown art director department sent beautiful photos of mountains to be on the cover, and they weren't even the Sierra Nevada, and I was like, whoa. It's going to matter. And luckily, those are the Kearsarge Pinnacles. And that rock there, just to the right of it, Daryl, who's in the audience, and I, and Carter, who was here earlier today, camped in, 2018, 2015, God knows when. We were there. We had our asses kicked that day. Okay, next slide. Igor? Yes. Well, this could practically be the only slide. A friend of mine, Will Marshall, runs the company Planet. It was Planet Labs, and they got a bunch of shoebox-sized satellites up there. The cameras are from the CIA. The gyroscopes are dental drill motors that have a high RPM. And so they're kind of a do-it-yourself satellite company, but dang, look at that. There's Kings Canyon, the big one, and it keeps going up straight to Bubbs Creek and then up. And the Kern Basin is this ring here. And there's the Great Western Divide. There's Triple Divide Peak because there's the Kaweahs going off and the Tablelands over here. The Monarch Divide and the Muro Blanco and the Upper Basin. The Muir Trail tends to stay in canyons. And you will see there's Mammoth. And here's, of course, Mono Lake, the Tuolumne Meadows, probably Matterhorn Peak and Twin Lakes. Yes, the Gary Snyder-Kerouac Peak, I call it, since it looks nothing like the Matterhorn. And I have chapters about names, which I won't get into much. Notice the incredible granite apron out here, lower altitude, but glaciated. And Hetch Hetchy, Boo, and Eleanor Lake and Cherry Lake. And I tell you what, this hike in Upper Cherry Creek, which is a kayaker's route, rather awesome. What else can I say? The big divides, like let me not get it wrong, there's the Goddard Divide, Mount Goddard and the Enchanted Gorge. Let's talk about names. That's Goddard Canyon, that's Goddard Creek. They're not in the same... I mean, the names up here are ramshackle. And this big thing is San Joaquin, South Fork, North Fork, almost goes to Mammoth. Kind of interesting from the satellite view. This is the long caldera, 500,000 years ago. It blew up. And there are geologists who think the reason that the crest of the Sierra, which is this dragon back, that the reason it's low here is that it simply was blown up 500,000 years ago, still steaming all around it. And Mammoth Mountain, a late volcanic addition, is the only break in the crest of the Sierra from here to here. It's like 11 to 12,000 feet in a wall that makes it the greatest escarpment on Earth. And and here's the middle fork, and because I'm going to show you Hippity Dome. Hippity Dome is about right there. And okay, next slide, so that I don't go on the whole spiel. Aha, another Planet Labs thing, and there is Mount Whitney. So we're up at about 160 miles above, and on an oblique angle, which gives you the Sierras. There's the road to Whitney Portal, which must be up around here. If you were going to take the trail up to the top of Whitney, you'd go up this canyon, and there's trail off the photo, and then trail up the back thing there to the top of Whitney, a walk up. But the Mountaineers Route, which John Muir took in 1873, is that slot right there. And I can tell you from us camping there at Iceberg Lake that that's a steep slot. And even this little drop right here, that's steep. And this is Tillenio Lake, Norman Clyde's favorite lake, and it's the ultimate end of the Kenneth Rexroth's great trip around the world ends at this. This is the magical, mystical lake, the Bayul, the Shambhala of the Sierras. Austere, high, no outlet, no inlet. And it's just about 100 feet from the lake to the crest of the range and falling down. So it's a very peculiar, high, beautiful. Well, beautiful is not the right word. It's austere and sublime, you might say. And there's Guitar Lake, see the guitar shape. And again, let's go to the next slide because there's the close-up. And there's Iceberg Lake, where Daryl and Joe and I camped with bloody knees, having come up this thing and desperate. We should have been in crampons, not snowshoes. So somewhere up here we camped, and looking up this thing, we saw extreme skiers just skiing down this, and when they would fall over and they would just somersault and start skiing again, like nothing had even happened. So we were impressed, and this is a world destination for crazy extreme skiers and athletes of that sort. The climbers go up this, the walkers go up that. You can almost see that there's a little house there, a station at the top of Whitney. All right, next slide. Okay, this is not as confusing as it seems. If those of you who read the New Yorker profile of me back in January, the hike started here at South Lake and went up to Bishop Pass, past Long Lake and Saddle Rock Lake, Bishop Lake, up and over Bishop Pass. This is Doozy Basin, this shape here. One of my favorite places on earth. And down here would be Knapsack Pass, and this is Palisades Basin, and this is North Palisade, that wall. When you're under it, you can't even see what a monster it is, but from space you can kind of see it. There's the biggest glacier left in the Sierra, Palisades Glacier. And there's Thunderbolt Pass right there, where you come back down onto this lake and you go back out. So an entire week-long backpacking trip of pretty severe rigorousness. Well, it's a great walk. I'd do it every year if I could. Is all on this one satellite photo. And the Muir Trail is right here going down. That's probably Lake Helen, his daughter, down the valley, Little Peak Meadow, Big Peak Meadow, Grouse Meadow, and on its way. Okay, next slide. So what is the Sierra Nevada? This is the Sierra Nevada 80 million years ago, underground. The Farallone Plate was diving from left to right and melting, and the lightest rock came up to the top. If it had burst to the surface, it would be the Cascades, it would be volcanoes. Stuck as it was down there, it cooled down there, and that's why you get granite. The individual lumps are called plutons. The entirety of it is called the batholith. And so 80 million years, and let's have the next slide, if I did this right. Yeah, 20 million years. It got worn away up above it. And so the Central Valley's here, and it tilted as it came up. God knows why, the geologists don't, so that the east side is very steep and the west side is much more relaxed, as we saw in the photo. Okay, next. So when you're on the ground, so this is Pinchot Pass. That is a pluton. It's the best representation. That's the cartridge pluton. This is particularly white, hard granite, absolutely gorgeous on the other side of it, and here too. That's vernacular needle, not a needle. That's vernacular coal, a tough pass. This is like Mount Ruskin, maybe, or here, Mount Ruskin. And Cartridge Pass over here is the old route of the John Muir Trail. This is Lake Marjorie, which has glacial. The reason it's that blue is not bad film. It is the glacial silt that is suspended in it. Okay, next. Now, this is my notion that Elizabeth Whaley drew for me. The canyons are so deep, they cut the Sierras into massifs, as the French would say. And as a backpacker, what you want to do is get up on one of these massifs, spend a week wandering around. If you don't have to drop down 3,000 feet into a canyon and come up the other side, all the better for fooling around. So this is how I think it splits out. And I'm proud of this as being my own psychogeological analysis of the High Sierra. Okay, next. So a lot of the Sierra looks like this, right? White granite and beveled, somewhat glaciated, somewhat God knows what. And I don't even know what this peak is because they all look like this, more or less, except they don't. Okay, next. Here's to Hippity Dome, and a glacier rubbed it. And I want you to understand that it is twice the height of Half Dome, from here to there. And why does nobody know to Hippity Dome? Because it's hard to get there. It's like a week-long backpacking trip to get to the foot of it. It's a 3-day backpacking trip to get to a rim over here to look at it. And so it's forgotten. In the 19th century, they would say the famous Hippity Dome, because everywhere in the Sierras was hard to get to. So why not, go see this amazing dome, which the Native Americans have a little petroglyph at the bottom, and it was obviously a sacred thing. You can guess what it might stand for. But it's forgotten now because it's harder than hell to get to, but I recommend it. Okay, next. Now, it's not all white granite, and this is another psychogeological fact. The roof pendants are the hard, old metamorphic rock that were capping the granite, and when they came to the surface, it's almost all washed away except not. There are sections of the Sierra that are the older metamorphic rock generally lying on top of and not worn away from the granite. So I'm going to show you some of that. Next. Aha! Look at that black rock, Goddard Divide. And look at this beautiful contact. There's granite, there's older metamorphic rock, which doesn't even really have names as far as I can tell. There's a Goddard Glacier, there's a Bergschrund, real glacier. Might not be there. This is 2005 probably. Okay, next. There's the Minarets. Well, these gothic black things, this is a roof pendant. You see it from Mammoth when you're on top. And it doesn't look like the Sierras. To me, the way I've reconciled, I say this in the book, when people tell me the Minarets are their favorite part of the Sierra Nevada, I think that is not a real Sierra person. That's someone who likes to look at spiky mountains, but hike on it and you'll think different. But also, the Sierras are so great that they have this little alien subrange sitting on it to add variety. So that's the Minarets. Next. This is Mount Goddard from the west, and look at this rock. This is the older metamorphic rock, a different kind, redder rather than black. And Goddard, which one of my friends calls this God's turd, because of the way it's configured. And next, you can see at sunset, it can become quite alpenglow florid. All right, next. This is metamorphic. This is granite. This is Chasm Lake in the Ionian Basin, which is a mix of granite and metamorphic that is quite spectacular throughout the Ionian Basin. And I like the look of this. Next. You can see that mountain. It's a bit of a each. This is near Martha Lake. Next. And now I want you to dig this. Daryl and Carter and I are, I think, the only humans who have seen this. This is the northwest side of Mount Clarence King. No one ever goes here. And God decided to do a cave painting. I call it the Leaping Antelope. It's a dike of older black rock. And this is an exceptionally pure white granite, maybe even called aplite. It's so pure. Okay, next. All right, when people ask me where to go in the Sierra Nevadas, I say, go in the white places. This is the ice coverage at the height of the last ice age. And most of the ice ages are pretty much the same in the Sierra. You know, we're a pretty Mediterranean climate to have ice coverage like this, but we do. And where the ice covered, that will be a good place to backpack. Next. There's much more detailed maps of the ice because peaks stuck out of it everywhere. And you can see the difference when you're hiking. You can see, oh yeah, there's the line of the highest point of the glacier. And here's Kings Canyon again running down. And there's the middle fork. And Hippity Dome is like the last thing that got smoothed. And there was quite a bit of a lump of it over here I don't even know where that is. It might be the Palisades. And here the Kern, the mighty Kern. This whole thing running down and down and down. I'm surprised it's only to there, but on the other hand, that's about 5,000 feet above sea level, so it's probably too warm. An awesome complex, and that's probably the Miter Basin right there. Okay, next. So there's a famous drawing by William Morris, a geologist of the late 19th century. Mountains start like that. He studied Switzerland and he studied Norway to get this, although he was either a Brit or an American. They might start like this, like the White Mountains still look like now. Then glaciers glaciate them and they begin to bevel. They create high basins, they come on down, the rivers get bigger, the canyons get deeper. When the glaciers go away, you got this. And well, this is a beautiful graphic. And I want to show you something. The Sierras are lightly glaciated compared to Switzerland, which has like 10 times the amount of precipitation and is 10 latitude lines higher. So the Swiss Alps are deep and heavily glaciated. The Sierras are lightly glaciated. And so you get, Sierras look like this. Next, I blew it up. This is what the Sierras look like because some areas are not yet etched and there's a high plateaus in the Sierra that just never had the ice cut back into them. You give it another 10 million years and that won't be a ramp, that'll be a knife edge as in the Alps. Next. See, it's the Sierras, this is a USGS photo, I didn't have any better to show you. That, give it some more millions and the glaciers would etch it from both sides until it's a knife edge. But there's a lot of these. Francois Mathers, a geologist, called them the boreal plateaus, which is not a bad name. All right, next. There's the ramp to Mount Langley up there on the top, one of the southernmost of the 14,000ers, and a walk up, as you can see, with a kind of a tough spot here, but not horrid. Unless you're an impatient friend like my friend Terry and decide to come down here rather than the way we came up, then it can get a little terrifying. But it's mostly a walk up. And yet that too, the glacier etched real hard over here, but it never reached but over here on this side. Okay, next. All right, ice, more about ice. This is taken with my iPhone from an airplane window. That's the Palisades glaciers. The biggest glaciers in the Sierras left at a time when it's clearly snow-free, and that's it, and they are going away. They're 50% the size they were in the 1935 when they measured them, and they're going away faster, of course, every year. So it is a sad thing to report, and I'll talk more about that later. Next. There's a glacier hanging there in that U. You see the terminal moraine, the side moraine, and it's north-facing. It's in the shade a lot of the day. That could be more rock than ice now. I would not be at all surprised because this picture's from 2010, and a lot is changing faster than ever. Next. All right, this is my sad story. This is the top of Dead Man Canyon, Elizabeth Pass. There's a great book about finding it by Stuart Edward White, finding a pass that could take horses. But set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with the hilarious Coppermine Pass, which I don't have time to go into, and Coppermine, the Coppermine's here. The pass is the peak itself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the trail goes right over the peak, which is crazy, but it gets you this ridge, and it gets you to the mine, which has at least ounces of copper. So, next. That's it now, folks. That topo map was from like 93. And these are the basins. And see that? That's the last remaining fragment of glaciers in all of Upper Dead Man Canyon. In fact, go next and it'll be a photo. That's it, folks. It'll be gone in a couple of years. So climate change, glaciers, they're like thermometers. They're going fast, and they were never big in the Sierra. I mean, for the last 5,000 to 8,000 years, they've been rather minor. Except for the little ice age, they grew a little. But this is it, and that was a sad day. And without this glacier melting all night long, because it was above freezing, and chuckling by our little campsite, we would have had a dry campsite, and we would have been really sad cookies that night because we were thirsty. But we drank glacier blood that night, and we're grateful for it, but it won't last for long. Next. Oh yeah, glacial polish. Everybody in this Sierra has seen it. I don't have very many great pictures of it. Sometimes there's huge sheets, and in the afternoon you blind yourself looking west and down because the sunlight's popping off this. The ice did this over the millions of years. All right, next. So I want to change the subject from the subject of climate change and the rapid degradation of the Sierra as a space that was in its zone for a while to fun. We go up there to have fun. And I'm not sure the bear was having the most fun in his life at this very moment, but he made it across without falling. Not all of us did. But this is what we like to do up there. And I want to explain a little bit about Class 2 off-trail backpacking in the Sierra, which is what my book is about. I can say my book is about many things, and it would take me more than my whole time here to read the table of contents even to you. So a lot of topics, a lot of things I'm skipping on, but I just wanted to get what was visual and what might be fun for today. All right, next. So this is when you're on trail. John Muir Trail, under Forrester Pass, a lot of dynamite. I actually have some friends who refused to hike this because they didn't like the way the dynamite blew the hell out of the cliffside. I like to hike it. In fact, that's me. I think Daryl probably took this picture of Joe. And you can see they just went ahead and blew it up and then made these scary little steps, and on you go in the Muir Trail. Next. They blew a big hole in the granite to get through one spot. This is on the High Sierra Trail, which is a magnificent trail and neglected because it's a diverse east to west or west to east across the Sierra, and people generally do loop trips or they're enamored of the John Muir Trail, which now gathers 90% of the traffic. Next. This is the Muir Trail near Forrester Pass, and I'm thinking about the guys who built this. It might have been a CCC crew, but in any case, it was 1934 or so. I'm glad I wasn't part of that team. Next. So, but this is a sketch of what a Sierra basin looks like. The glacier was up here. It ran off into a bigger glacier. It's sort of like the Morris drawing, right? Except that what I'm trying to say is, what you want is to go up into these basins, camp by a lake. You might have to cross to the next basin by going over a low pass, a Class 2 pass, hopefully. We avoid Class 3. Class 3 to us equals trauma, fear. How do you tell the difference between Class 2 and Class 3? Class 2, you're having fun. Class 3, you're terrified. So it is a really easy distinction to make. And when certain guidebooks say 2/3, we're thinking, nope, it's one or the other. So this is what you want to do, is get off trail. And the beautiful thing about the Sierras is that there are literally a couple hundred basins like this that are off trail. There's no trails into them or out of them, and there are yours to explore. And you might run into someone up there, but you're more likely to run into a half dozen deer to every one person you see, and you often will see nobody. Next. So the 9 Lake Basin, we did that one. You see how it's configured, except you got to get the topography. It's really steep and tall here, these Black Kaweah, a monster. And then there's these lakes that are lower, lowest lake, and it goes downstream into this thing. Luckily, it's off the map, so I don't have to tell the story, but last summer we had a heck of a time getting over a double pass there, Lion Rock Pass and Lion Pass. Class 2, but Class 2 has a huge range of what you might call the ugliness factor or the effort factor, strenuosity or whatever. Next. There's Pioneer Basin. That is a sweet little one that runs down into Upper Mono Creek, and off you go. No trails in it, lots of great campsites. It's called Pioneers because the pioneers are Hopkins, Crocker, Stanford, and some other robber barons, so it should be the Robber Baron Basin. And I propose that, or else to change these 4 names. Maybe, Musk, Gates, Bezos, and I mean, that's the class of names we got up here, so it changes in order. Next. Okay, but cross-country hiking in a high basin can be like this. For sure, Daryl took this picture because that's me and Joe traipsing across the Dumbbell Basin, which is so remote that if you're there, no one else is going to be there. And you've got this tremendous view off to the west, and that's the glacier I mentioned earlier. Get yourself over into Lakes Basin, and it's the same damn thing. More beauty, more. And you can see the walking is just traipsing, and when that happens, it's great. Next. Another high basin. This is Doozy Basin in the last high snow year we had, I think, 2011. Next. Now, sometimes it can get awful. In fact, there's Daryl here and Carter behind him. Down there's the Muir Trail, and we said, let's take the University Shoulder. It's in the guidebook, and it's only class 2. And so we did 2,000 feet of this level of steepness, and it took all day, and we're going, damn, we should have stayed on the trail for this one. But we didn't. Next. This is another class 2 adventure, and I want to teach a lesson in this. That's Observation Pass. This is Amphitheater Lake. The goal is to get over Observation Pass, which clearly has a snow cornice in it. And you're looking at it going, you gotta be kidding me. But the guidebook says class 2. And my hiking friend Gina, she and her hiking buddy from Berkeley, Julie, they looked at that and they said, no way. And they went to the left and did something far, far worse. And in the guidebook, since it says class 2, you gotta trust your fellow Sierra people and think it's gonna be okay. So next. That's what it looks like when you're actually up there. It's tilted, but it's not horrid. You can make your way, and so we did. And so that's what class 2 means. And foreshortening is when you're below and you're looking at a face, you see the verticality, you don't see the horizontality. You cannot overcome that with cognitive abilities. It's like an optical illusion where the black and white circle throws colors into your eyes by spinning. Just because you know it's an illusion doesn't mean you stop seeing it. So foreshortening is inevitable, and you have to trust your fellow, the previous people. And in that sense, exploring the Sierras is not a full-on new planet wilderness experience. The guidebooks are there. It's a known space. Next. Sometimes backpacking and cross-country can get you into bushwhacking, and then time slows down, or you slow down, and time expands. But it's slow and tedious work. Next. Sometimes class 2 can turn into a horrid moment of class 3. Look at that drop off, and look at this, and we're looking at this going, okay, no way. And indeed, all three of us, I forbore to take pictures whilst my friends were on hands and knees like I had been, and I crawled on my belly like a snake to make sure that nothing untoward happened in this horrid little moment of class 3. And this is what I want to say. If you stay in class 2, you're having a grand time in the Sierra. The moment you get on to class 3, you have to think hard about, is it worth your life to play a game? And the answer is no. So stick to class 2. Next. These are fraught moments. These streams can knock you over and then you drown, or break a leg. So we're never happy crossing streams in the Sierra. It's probably, except for lightning, it's for sure the second most dangerous thing that we do. Next. Sometimes you gotta wait it out. It's not the happiest of moments, but you know what is the cure for moments like this? Next. Coffee. Brew up a coffee and the storm will end eventually. That's my tent that's lying on me, so I'm perfectly dry under it, waiting for the storm to ease. It was sleet, so snow is easy, rain is hard, sleet is like, yuck. Next. But a lot of times it's like this. There's Daryl leading the way, there's Carter. We're traipsing down to Castle Jones. We'll drop a huge distance down into where the trails are, down in Woods Creek, because weirdly, the glaciers seem to follow fault lines, and they are deep and narrow, and then you got this upland. Castle Dome's quite magnificent and clearly glaciated. Next. At the end of the day, a chance to kick back. And that's a beautiful moment after a hard day's walking. You get to see the sunset, and there's a chance to relax and talk. Next. This is another nice campsite. I just want to give you a sense of that it isn't always walking and that there's a lot of the day where we're hanging out afterwards. Next. In fact, one time, you know Andy Goldsworthy and his great landscape art. Presidio has some. So this is my Andy Goldsworthy for the day, a little Stonehenge. And I knocked it over before we left so as not to mess with other people's sense that no one has ever been there. I don't even like trail ducks, much less something this elaborate. And all these rocks are right here. It's not like I moved them. You couldn't lift them. But it was a good way to spend a late afternoon where we stopped a tiny bit early compared to usual. Next. Okay, winter backpacking. That's what this chapter is about. It's fun. Snow camping in the spring. The days are long. The temperatures aren't bad. The snow is firm. You're not going to get avalanched. It's not as hard or as cold as you think, particularly on snowshoes, because I am a crap skier, and Joe's never skied. And Daryl is a good skier, but joined us in snowshoeness after. We snowshoed when we were in our 20s. We skied when we were in our 30s, 40s. I got too scared to do it, and we shifted back to snowshoes, and I recommend it highly as a beautiful activity. Next. You can get moments like this on your snowshoe trips. That Mount Humphrey's a beast. And we're just cruising around and camping on the snow. Anywhere works camping on the snow. You just stomp down with your snowshoes and throw your tarp up. It's not a hard thing to find good campgrounds. Next. Now, snowshoeing can lead to awkward moments, and I don't know how I got out of this. Again, Daryl or Joe took this photo, and I don't remember dying, but you know, who knows how the hell I got out of that one. Luckily, I believe we decided to go down this rather than down the Eschenbacher ledges. Those are class 3, they're up out here. And we crawled on our bellies, and coming down, we said, why not just go down the chute? Well, this is why. Next. And then winter backpacking, you get these moments. This is below this is probably only at about 6,000 feet, so we felt justified in having a fire. It can be a beautiful thing. Next. And a sunny morning when you're snow camping. What can I say? First of all, the trails are all gone. The people are gone. The mosquitoes are gone. You kind of have the Sierra to yourself. And you can't make much progress, but I mean, in terms of daily efforts. And we usually only stayed out 3 nights. So we'd go out 2 days, come back. But what fun it was. Okay, next. And you can have the occasional peak experience. There's Daryl taking a picture of Joe. And we're on top of Mount Williamson, the second biggest peak in California, with, well, I believe that would be Independence, God knows. We were looking down on Manzanar, famous Manzanar. The platting of the street plan of Manzanar is visible from above, and it's way bigger than Independence was, and a rather spooky sight to see from above this awful moment in California and American history. But the top of Williamson was quite glorious. And so that's a 10,000-foot drop to the Owens Valley below. Next. Aha. A quick shot through the animals. Marmots, they are real camera hogs. They love to have their pictures taken. They usually pose. They're fearless and they're beautiful. Next. Deers also do not care about humans when they're in the national parks. They've never been shot. And as you can see, they just walk by on the trail like, why are you on my trail? Next. Bears, on the other hand, this one I call unhappy youth. He felt embarrassed to be seen and was rushing by us, a young juvenile. Next. Pikas are never embarrassed. Tough little creatures, living at height. They don't hibernate like marmots do. They gather all their food in the summer and tuck it away and live under the snow in the winter. They're on sky islands. As it heats up, they're kind of in trouble and keep going higher. But I've heard that they're not in as bad a condition as some people have rumored. They're more related to rabbits than mice, which explains a lot. Next. Aha! Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep. We backpacked for, I don't know, 30 years without seeing them. They were down to 100 individuals. They got put on the endangered species list, and they're up to about 600 or 700 individuals. And a lot of them have been alien abducted by humans who knocked them out, helicoptered them to a different basin with their families to split them and make more and more herds. So it's part of the strategy, but I love to imagine the stories they tell each other afterwards, like, what happened and why is our basin different? And these guys weren't happy to see us. But next, this I took at a distance. So this is maybe 5% of all the existing members of the Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep. So Go Endangered Species Act. I write a lot about that in the book. We need to save these fellow creatures. And so when you see them up there, which I admit is rare, gone to see the same herd, seen them now 4 or 5 times in the same meadow, but sometimes they're not there. And so it's a who knows type situation, but we trust that they're getting healthier and spreading out. If there's mountain lions that they can identify as predating on them, and California makes it illegal to kill mountain lions, they will they'll shoot the mountain lion with a dart, knock it out, and put it in a net and helicopter it down to where it can just kill sheep instead of these guys. So that's a good thing, I think. Next. The yellow-legged Sierra frog, also endangered, but coming back also. And the National Park Service is clearing the fish out of a lot of high ponds that they had stocked with fish that had never been there in years past. Very funny to see the signs. We are running an experiment here, which means we're killing all the fish in this pond. Don't mess with it. But it's bringing the frogs back. Next. Yes, a floating salamander, although it looks like he's flying because the water was so clear. Next. An interesting butterfly. Next. Snakes, kind of beautiful. Next. Another kind of snake. See, he's looking at me going, don't come closer. And the rattle was rattling. This was rather lower altitude. Now, rattlesnakes only go up to about 6,000 feet, 7 max, and we're usually up above 10,000 feet. So this was a rare, we were in a low trail when this happened. Next. Mountain bluebird, next. A grouse, they're all over. And the mothers fake being injured and crawl in front of you to distract you. And they're saying to their babies, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. And the babies are following their mom. They're right next to her going, why, Mom? What's the problem? And the mom said, get out of here. I'm faking my death in order to save you. And you are still following me. You're such idiots. And these huge grouse arguments. It must work in the wild because it's very evolutionary. Next. I don't know what kind of raptor this is, but I bet someone out here does. Osprey. Bless you. Ha-ha. So there's ospreys in the Sierra, for sure. Yeah, there are. And next, Rosie Finch, sitting right next to Daryl, I think. Next. And there, that surprised me, but now I've seen him 3 times. Bald eagle. Beautiful in the High Sierra. I mean, I did not know that, but there it is. Next. And a coyote on the beach at Desolation Lake. He had stared at me for a while, and then as he was trotting off, I got a distant shot. But it makes quite a beautiful photo, I think. A confident thing, not at all like that bear. This coyote was afraid of nothing. Next. And there's our 2 boys, me and Mark Katie, Tim and Cedar. This same beach at the lee side of Desolation Lake, that's maybe the glacier divide there. And this lake is gigantic, Desolation Lake, underneath Mount Humphreys. You can see it from airplanes. It's so big when you're on its shore, you're thinking, okay, something's wrong. I'm hallucinating, or this is Lake Michigan. It's so damn big looking compared to every other Sierra Lake. Quite a sublime sight and a favorite, again, of Kenneth Rexroth. And you can hike around it. You can camp on the sides, the far ends. It's a worth visiting. Next. Now, I couldn't do this in my book that you'll see in the book. You can't put strangers' photos in books. It just is, the publisher freaks out, the lawyers. But in the last 10 years or so, what I've been noticing as a aging backpacker is that young people are coming up there, and Sierra lovers, I talk more on the trail than I used to people that I pass. And if they want to talk and we want to talk, have a 5-minute conversation. And this couple was from Chicago, They walked the lakes of Michigan every winter with 50-pound backpacks and their walking poles to stay in shape. They would come out to the Sierras for a month in the summer. They worked in finance, I think. And they would take like 4 trips in a row and go back. They had been taking trips all over the American West, but they had come to the I think, self-evident, no, they'd come to the correct conclusion that the Sierra Nevada is the best for backpacking of the kind that we like to do. And they had just gone over Frozen Lake Pass in a fog bank, which is one of these Steve Roper Class 3 passes, and they had sat on their butt and I was thinking, yep, I know that, we could know. But you can kind of see. Okay, next. These 2 gals zoomed by us. They, I think, were probably college athletes. They were so strong because we watched them approach our campsite, talk to us briefly. I asked if I could take that picture. They flashed through our campsite. They were going to do more till dark, I guess. And they were super impressive athletes. That's what I got to say. Next. This woman was from Moscow, and she was working tech in San Francisco, and she was in a skirt. And it had a handbag, and and this is like Lamarck Cole behind her, 12,888 feet, and it was like an hour before sunset. And excuse me, miss, what are you gonna do? She said, oh, I got a flashlight. And it was her habit to take walks to as high as she could get out of the eastern side and go back down. And what a Sierra person, right? Next. And this is Tina and Norma. They are about to climb Mount Royce, which is a very difficult climb. They probably have some rope back there, and saw them on the trail a couple of years ago. And then next. Last summer, I was in Palisades Basin and guiding the New Yorker reporter, Josh Rothman, great guy, and my good friend Mario Biaggioli, and we were in Palisades Basin, and I was thinking, what happened to that campsite that is up on a knoll? I couldn't find it, and I was going, whatever, we camped. The next day, this figure in white appeared. He's from Nashville, Tennessee, and it was his first time in the Sierras. He bought Roper's High Route Guide and a map, and he was doing the Roper High Route his first time in the Sierras. I said, how did you get in shape for that? He said, well, I walked up and down my driveway. I'm going, in Nashville, I'm going, well, whoa. And he goes, well, my driveway is about 4 miles long. And so I was wondering, his name is Tim, but I wondered if he was in the country music business, but I didn't get his last name. And this is why. He came up to me and he said, I think I'm lost. I went up to Knapsack Pass, and it just couldn't have been Knapsack Pass. It was so damn steep, and Roper says it's easy. So am I lost? And I'm going, well, no, you're not lost. And let's get out the map. And we pointed at the map, and I said, here's where we are. And he goes, no, we aren't. And I thought, what do you mean? He said, no, we're here. And so in other words, I was lost, and he was not lost. And I was in my own Palisades Basin, and for 24 hours, I didn't know where I was because I'd gone to the wrong lake. And so he told me where I was, and I told him how to get up the east side of Knapsack Pass. So fair's fair, but he was my white angel, and I wish like anything I'd gotten his last name. And if he's some famous country western star, it'd be great to know. But in any case, he was a hoot, and he saved my ass because I was going to take Josh and Mario over Isosceles Pass instead of Thunderbolt Pass, and I would have been so mad at myself, that I would have been, he saved me. So, next. I want to remind people, because I am such a high altitude above treeline guy, that you're in those Sierra Canyons, you are in forests, and they're old growth. They haven't been logged. They're beautiful. They just barely escaped being killed by reservoirs. This would have been underwater if Kings Canyon had been reservoired. Next, you got your meadows. There's a grouse meadow. And next, I'm just going to show you things that you see in the Sierra. This is Island Lake, and in fact, Terry and Judy have been here on this bench and going past this. This is in Desolation. Came down on this one day in January where no snow had fallen yet, and the lake had frozen once, broken up in a wind, and refrozen. And I walked out onto this lake, but dropping in onto this lake was one of the more beautiful and extraordinary days of my life, or hours. Didn't want it to end, really. Next. Sunset in camp. It's nice. Next. There's another sunset. There's Mount Whitney as seen from the east. There's Whitney with the Mountaineers Route, oh my God. And there's Mount Russell, the Class 3 route up that ridge, famous amongst climbers. Nice. Next. There's a moment on the high trail, the High Sierra Trail, one of the Kawiyas, I presume. Next. There's a day in Lake South America. Who knows what was going on with that little cloud. Next. And a pond up above Wallace Lake. Next. There's Mount Agassiz and Mount Winchell at sunset, and Isosceles Peak. And now, next. Aha, our Tom Killian, right? And so look how he caught it. Look how I mean, we have one of the great artists of all time living in our state, giving us the vision of what this place looks like. He gave me 4 woodblock prints, the usage of, for this book, and they make it a much handsomer book. Between that and the drawings of Elizabeth Whaley and the contributions from Planet and from Space, I got some quite fine and unprecedented illustrations. Okay, next, a juniper. And then next, and this will be the last one, Tom's vision of what foxtail pines look like. So, good. We got about 10 minutes for Q&A, and I am asked that anybody who might have a question, pop on over to the microphone over here, which will be clean between askings. Happy to take any questions, but most especially Sierra questions, of course.
I didn't notice any bear canisters in your photos. How do you manage your food in bear country?
Yeah, we have carried bear canisters pretty often, and then we started using Ursacks, and we have become convinced from the extremely reliable internet evidence that the Ursacks will do the job, and so we therefore use Ursacks, and we feel like we're safe enough, and that's our story, and we're sticking to it. They are Kevlar. In fact, it was hard to get them during the Iraq War, and with wire. They're a bag made of Kevlar with wire tops and wire thread, and bears have thrashed them in zoos for hours on end without breaking into them. I mean, they squish everything inside, but they don't break into them. Yes.
Hi there. Sorry to bring it back to our sad topic of climate change, but
yeah.
I'm wondering, for those who don't know in the audience, if you could also speak to 2 questions for you. One about the Sierras, so speak to the significance of the Sierras as it relates to all of our water supply, and maybe how some of those changing snow conditions that you mentioned will have impacts for our water supply. And the second question is, I'm a young person working on climate issues. I loved Ministry of the Future. It gave me a lot of hope, like sort of perverse hope. And I'm wondering if you could speak to what gives you hope in this fight for climate action.
Sure. Thank you for that. Yes, I think everybody here knows the Sierra Nevada snowpack is like the mega reservoir. Something like, oh God, I knew the figures, like 40 million acre feet. Well, let me just say a huge amount, more than the reservoirs will hold, the snowpack holds, and then the snow melts into the reservoirs at a rate that we can put to use. And if it's rain and runs into those reservoirs, it has to be let through the reservoirs down out the Golden Gate. So we are in terrible trouble when it comes to water. And then we're also in terrible trouble worldwide when it comes to climate change. What gives me hope? Well, I think I have to seize hope at this point, and as an act of will rather than a sensible judgment. So pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. And I will say this, I went to Glasgow for COP26, and there are a lot of people trying to solve the climate problem, and some of them are the managers of stupendous amounts of private capital. And so it used to be that private capital was all about ripping us off and wrecking the world, and a lot of them have come to the realization that an impoverished people in a wrecked biosphere is not good for their businesses as capitalists. And so green investing is a real thing. And although everybody here knows, I think I'm an old leftist and environmentalist, we're in such a desperate straits that it's a sign of hope that even private capital might get thrown at the problem, which means human work. So it's a perverse way to, like you said, a perverse hope. Yes.
Hi, thanks. When I've been hiking in the Sierra, I've noticed that the areas that you love so much, where there's so much open rock, are in a way they're boundaries of growth areas, little forests or little meadows, as you showed some. And I'm wondering if you have anything to say about the kind of the isolation of each of those ecosystems and what it's like to see almost like a self-contained world, what observations you've had when you've gone through those little self-contained ecosystems.
Sure, thank you. It's like some incredibly genius bonsai gardeners have gardened every single little nook of the Sierra. They're so beautifully appointed and gardened, and yet not. They're natural. You see in the south-facing slopes a different set of a biome than the north-facing slopes, and little micro pockets of warmth are out of the wind. And the southern part of the range down there, south of Junction Peak, is where the Great Western Divide takes off. That's southern Sierra, and the Great Western Divide itself look more Mediterranean, whiter rock, greener plants. And so you traipse along from micro environment, from biome to biome. And when I saw the glaciers were dying, I got freaked out. Very frightened, very sad. But Mondo Quintero, current head of the California State Park System, is a friend, and he was a national park ranger for many years up there. And he said, look, the Sierras are a sky island. And since 10,000 years ago, that sky island has gone through droughts that lasted 100 years, and then a little ice age, back and forth. And look what we've got there now. So it probably won't all die. It will be pressured, and then it'll come back later if we suck back down to 350, as 350.org is talking about. So I took some hope from Mondo's long-range science fiction view that I myself had been blown out of by last summer's experience. Yeah.
Hi. So as we all probably eagerly await to read the book and check out the Sierras and other little pockets, you mentioned how it's like being like there's no one else there a lot of the time, and I'm curious, are there ways in which you travel through the land to kind of keep it pristine for the next person? Like, do you kind of follow leave no trace principles? Is that something that you kind of talk about in the book or bring into the conversation, inviting people to like explore the world in that way?
Oh yeah. I mean, leave no trace. It's a great national park slogan. So we do what we can. I mean, should I confess this? I mean, there are basins like the Mountaineers Route on Whitney, being world famous, where you want to carry out not only your toilet paper, but what you have excreted in a bag on your back. So you never lose weight in your backpack because you're eating your food, but you're shitting your shit. And it's like a net no loss. And we don't set fires. I've met some people who claim they're Sierra people. Well, we're only burning green wood or little things or twigs. And we don't do that. We have little cubes, little Esbit cubes. We'll make a campfire the size of a matchbook and look at it and go, oh, that would be a great campfire if it was 100 times bigger, but whatever, we're enjoying it, and then we go to bed. It's important, and I think everybody should respect that. And I would honestly say that nobody's ever seen our marks in the wilderness, and there are indeed, when I say no one's up there, there are thousands of people up there. But most of them are on the Muir Trail, which is where you're going to get your Giardia, because they can't control that problem with hundreds of people on that poor trail. It's a beautiful trail, but it isn't. It's over famous, whatever. And so, but you get out in the backcountry, you're still going to run into people occasionally. There's the wilderness permit system and the online commentary will prove that there's a lot of people doing this backcountry wandering. But the Sierras are so big that at any given moment, and any given day, you are for sure not going to see people when you go to these obscure places. So we just do our best. Yeah, and I knock over every trail duck I see that isn't absolutely functionally necessary for you finding a route, which is super rare. If I see one that people have just set up like Kilroy, I was here, I knock them over with prejudice.
I have just a short question about elevation.
Yes.
I don't know if you talked about it already, but how it affects you or your group, the elevation gain.
Yeah, elevation gain. Davis is like 50 feet above sea level, and we often drive up to 9 or 10,000 feet and then hike up to 11. I began to get altitude sickness in my 40s or 50s. It was a middle-aged thing. And I went from having no appetite to actually throwing up in the middle of my first night. I started taking Diamox. I began to figure out how much I needed, which isn't nowhere near as much as the doctors will prescribe first time around. And it works like a charm. It has weird side effects. It's a peculiar drug, but since it cures altitude sickness, if I'm going over 9,000 feet on my first day from home, I'll take it. And if I go to Desolation under 9,000, I don't take it. But altitude is hard, and it's worth considering, by the way, if you feel sick when you take long airplane flights, that the air pressure inside airplanes, as probably most of you know, is about 8,000 foot equivalent. And for some people, that'll make them sick over a long 12-hour flight or whatever. So you might want to Diamox for long distance flights. I have a friend for whom it cured his problems. Yeah.
Hey, thank you. So a reader of Ministry for the Future sees that you've thought a lot about biodiversity and particular rewilding and corridors, and that you might have even an affinity, for these ideas on a large scale, which I actually do too. Sometimes that involves repopulating animals that can kill people into places. Right. And one animal that isn't in California anymore that used to be is the grizzly bear, which sometimes does that. And so I'm curious how you think about whether there are places we want to have some of these creatures and others that, given we've settled, much of the planet, that we don't. And I'm interested in just sort of, it seems to me like your experience enjoying this areas would be different if you were trying to coexist with that type of creature. And the woman from Moscow probably wouldn't be running up and down with only a flashlight into the mountains. So just wonder if you'd reflect on that.
Thank you. I love the rewilding ideas, and there's so many things to be proud about as a Californian. We have now a 30 by 30 program, 30% of our land preserved in various definitions of wildness by 2030. Right now we're at 24%. We'll get to 30%. Everybody who's into that project says, and then 50 by 50. California can do it and wants to do it, and the European Union's doing it. It's a worldwide movement. And that's one of the things I love about the Sierra Nevada, the national parks and national forests, that this is already preserved land from earlier generations making an intense effort. I write about this in the book more than I've talked about it. What I'd like to see back, now the grizzly bear is a weird thing because most of them were down in the Tule marshes of the Central Valley, so they should be in Davis, not in the Sierra, and at the edge of my town. But the wolverine, dang, it would be good to have the wolverine back into the High Sierra. And I'm not understanding fully why we couldn't kidnap some from Canada and drop them in the High Sierra and watch them prosper. They eat dead deer in the winter. They are magnificent beasts. Bears are scared of them. Everybody's scared of them. They don't bother humans. They just stare at them and, like, don't mess with me. And no one would. So wolverines and wolves back in the Sierras too. That would be a beautiful thing. And there are internet rumors there's wolves in the Sierras. I don't think so, but I once saw a coyote so big that I thought to myself, oh my God, it's true. There are wolves in the Sierras. And then I learned that coyotes can get as big or bigger than German shepherds, and in their winter coats they look wolf-like. And the scientists never find any scat with wolf DNA. It's a kind of an internet rumor or a wish. It's a utopian wish. If only there were wolves in the Sierra. But wolverines could come back. And then the grizzlies, well, it would change the game. You might have to, what? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to hike in huge groups of people, which wouldn't be that much fun. It would be worth trying it and then seeing how you felt. And if you had to go out with 6 or 8 people and stick together, and one of them might have to carry a gun or some mace or whatever, it'd be worth it to have them back, I think. I mean, it's easy for me to say. I'm 70. It ain't going to happen in my backpacking lifetime.
Hi there. Thank you so much. Bringing the joy of the Sierra right to Berkeley. I did want to hold out a little bit of hope. I heard this wonderful proposal about how we can, when the people with money get really serious about, we're going to lose all our people, that includes our customers. So here's the plan. $500 billion from the national government to buy 50% stock in all the fossil fuel companies. Peaceful takeover. Happened before. And they do it all the time, these capitalists. And then we just guide them into employing all their personnel in ecological energy production. So we cut off all the complaints from labor. I mean, sounded good to me. I mean, $500 billion, that's what?
I'm totally with you. I agree with it.
I don't remember who this guy was, but KPFA. You know.
Well, no, but this is a thing. Only 25% of the fossil fuels on the planet is in private hands, and those are usually American companies. So Exxon, blah, blah. We could nationalize those companies, buy them, yes, and we should, and then decommission them. It's exactly your plan. Why not? And so in Ministry for the Future, I have carbon quantitative easing. I've been bringing up a problem that is causing many an expert to go a little cross-eyed with, and I guess I'll leave you with that, as depressing as it is. There were 75% of the fossil fuels are owned by national governments around the world, and they bank on that money and selling those fossil fuels as sometimes 60 to 80% of their national income, with which they pay the teachers, police, air controllers, etc., with which they run their countries. Well, if they're deprived of that income, they are broke, then they're social breakdown, then they're a failed state. And we're talking about Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, Nigeria, Venezuela, also to a certain extent Canada, Australia, China, America, and Russia, famously. And so these petrostates are looking down the barrel of a financial gun. If they can't sell their fossil fuels, they're broke and their state and their society falls apart. If they can, the biosphere breaks and the whole society falls apart everywhere. Well, this is a dilemma. Neither choice is good. The petrostates are going to have to be compensated to keep it in the ground. And that's that $500 billion, except it's actually $1,600 trillion worth of fossil fuels. Can't make up that much money, but you can do 3 things. You discount it. They take a haircut because it's just a stranded asset, and so they're going to get less than current market value for this poison. They amortize it. So you sign on, you get paid for a century of this payout, which is discounted but substantial enough to keep you alive. And then it's entailed, which is to say you don't give it to leaders that run off to a tax haven. No kleptocrats. It's entailed such that that money has to be spent on decarbonizing and other green projects. Okay, the citizens of the countries that are making up this new money will howl. We're paying off blackmailers. This is terrible. The citizens and the leaders of the countries that might take the money will howl. Look, if you're giving us money, we get to do it if you do what we want with it. If you are going to put conditions on it, then we don't want it because we have sovereignty. Yeah, the whole world's got to go from nation state to member state. And this is the crucial distinction, that a member state has limitations on its sovereignty that are dependent on treaty obligations to other nations. European Union leads the way in this of what a member state is. Moderated or partial sovereignty compared to the old sovereignty. This is, I think, the political battle of our time. About half the population sees this. The other half is thinking my nation above all, which often is their language above all, and a little bit is excused by that. But you get into this fraught moment that we're in. Weird financial accommodations are going to have to be made to keep us from torching the planet. And they're necessary. They have to happen, or else we do torch the planet. So the weirdness factor is only going to ramp up for the rest of our lives. And let's take a moment to reel it back in. Tom will still be here, hopefully forever. His woodblock prints, California, made great art forever, will be here forever. And the Sierras will be here forever. Might be the next ice age before they fully rebound. But that's why we need to be in 350.org. We need to suck it back down to 350 in the atmosphere. That's a doable human project. It might happen. It needs to happen. And so it's not quite a canary in a coal mine, but what I'll say is this. The Sierras is a beautiful place. It was made wilderness 100 years ago. Thank God. Those people, John Muir and the whole crowd, did great work that we can be proud of and thank them for. And my defense of John Muir I'll save for another lecture. But with this stuff up here, it's already part of the 30 by 30, the rewilding project for us to enjoy as visitors only with leaving no trace. So thank God we have it. It's been a blessing in my life, and I know for a lot of you too. So let's leave with this note that the Sierras are tough, tougher than humans. Maybe humans will be tough too. Maybe we'll get our shit together. But in the meanwhile, this will still be up here for, I think it's got about 80 million more years before it looks like the Appalachians or whatnot. So enjoy while it's there, and thank you very much.